Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the live stream. Welcome back. I was away for a week, but now I'm back, so I hope everyone is doing very well tonight. Let's see who's on the stream tonight. We have FSM is the dog. Great to see you, FSM. FSM definitely is the dog. We have Raven 1983 Witch. Great to see you. Chatty Rat. Great to have you on once again. We have Killer. Great to have you on moderating once again. UBI, of course, mentioned. We have, let me see, Kathy Doyle. Great to see you, Kathy. Hope you're well tonight. We also have Derek. Great to see you, Derek. Tiny Demolition Lover. Hope you're well in Scotland. We have Lenan. Great to see you. Hope you're fine too there. We also have, let me see, Hugh Riddle. Great to see you. John O'Sullivan. Great to see you. Oh, we have a super chat. That's great. Who is it from? It's from Valerio. Hey, Valerio. Thank you so much for that. Hi, Max. I keep on seeing many empty shelves. Yes, and I think it's going to continue for some time. Thanks very much for that super chat. Unfortunately, the empty shelves are going to continue. And it's going to get worse, I'm afraid. Because as we're moving into September, it's looking like more and more people, kids are going back to school. People are going back to work. We're returning to normal. The pandemic is coming towards an end, it seems, and this is going to put more pressure on the haulage industry, of course, logistics, and I think it's getting clearer that things are going to get worse. And of course the grace periods are ending as well. Remember those things. So thanks for that super chat, very kind of you. Let's go back up to see who else is on the stream, just to say hello. We have Ad2YV. Great to see you, YouTube. Great to have you on. We have Pather. Great to see you, Pather. Catherine Jones. Great to see you. CJM. Great to have you on. Jam Lily. Great to have you on. Richard Prosser. Great to see you, Richard. Hope you're fine. Chris. Great to see you. We also have Buxton, great to see you, Buxton. Ed Stacy, great to see you. Reagan Elite, great to have you on. JP, we also have FFM, great to see you. Paul Clark, great to see you. Vimster, and so many more, so many people on tonight. That's great. I'll try and say hello to as many as possible. Monkeytron, great to see you. Sugar Free, great to have you on. Mike, great to see you. Night Raven, great to see you too. Hope you're well tonight. Another Derek. Chris, thank you so much for that super chat. Gove has better dance moves than me. Yeah, so I wanted to show you this video, guys, first, just to ease us in. There's a lot of doom and gloom around at the moment, and Michael Gove seems to have, lightened the mood before we even begin. Yes, thanks for that super chat. If he has better dance moves than you, then please don't dance. Inconsequential, good to see you too. Vicky, great to see you. The Londoner, great to see you, and all the others. And thanks to everyone for coming on tonight. Hope you're all very well. So let's start off, of course, with Michael Gove. Michael Gove hits the dance floor in Aberdeen, telling nightclub boss, "I love to dance." So, of course, we have to see this. If it works. Please work. We don't have any sound. I see that he was dressed for the occasion. Oh my goodness. There we go. Oh my goodness. Okay, so the penguin has groovy moves. No, we don't. Gove has gone full on fin discale. Grub swatting a fly. Oh my god. Oldest swinger in town. You know, the way he was dressed was a bit unusual for the location, I think. And look, let's not forget that Michael Gove is somebody who's been responsible for Brexit, okay? We can all have a bit of a laugh, but you know, this is not someone who really cares about ordinary people, who doesn't care about the public, doesn't care about the future of Britain. But we just have to laugh at his dance moves. Perhaps some drugs were involved, I don't know. Although he is going through a bit of a difficult period at the moment. He's divorced from his wife, or he's divorcing his wife, who writes for the Mail or the Express or the Telegraph, I don't remember which it is. Was that a sea lion performing at SeaWorld? When is a holiday not a holiday? When Boris Johnson is having it. So moving on to this, of course, Boris Johnson, Boris Johnson's West Country visit, not a holiday, number 10 says. You know, he's so tired after his holiday, he needed another one. You know, when you go on holiday and you return back so tired that you say, look, I need another one. Well, Boris Johnson, it seems, may have decided, yeah, I need another holiday. So spokesman says PM's continuing to work, yes, after he was criticised for an earlier break during Afghan crisis. So, of course, Boris Johnson and Dominic Raab were on holiday during the Afghan crisis. They decided to stay on holiday, it seems, as it was unfolding. Only under a lot of pressure did Dominic Raab return, Boris Johnson return, and get back to work. As I've said before, Boris Johnson doesn't like being Prime Minister in this context. He likes being Prime Minister as in, you know, in the House of Commons, head of the debating team, debating with the opposition. He likes the prestige of being Prime Minister, but he doesn't like doing the job. He doesn't like the work that's involved. And you can see it when he goes on, you know, when he goes to meet with the public. He starts out enthusiastic, and then towards the end he just gets bored. He's like a child who has, you know, who's excited about doing something, and then after about 10-15 minutes the enthusiasm just wears off. And Boris Johnson is just like that. It says here, so Boris Johnson returned to the West Country on Sunday after spending several days with his family, but Downing Street said that it's not a holiday and he is continuing to work. In a briefing to journalists, the Prime Minister's spokesman said Johnson had travelled to the west of England on Sunday and would be returning to number 10 on Thursday. Asked repeatedly if the short break from Downing Street was a holiday, the spokesman said it was not. He's away from the office, but he's still working. Yes. The Prime Minister had previously been criticised for deciding to head off on holiday in Somerset on Saturday, August the 14th, despite the perilous situation in Afghanistan with the Taliban advancing rapidly. Johnson was forced to cut short the break after just a day, being pictured at Taunton Station with aides on the 15th of August, before chairing a meeting of the Cobra Emergency Committee back in Downing Street later that day. The Foreign Secretary also came under attack for choosing to go ahead with a holiday in Crete before returning to tackle the crisis. Pressed on whether Johnson had felt free to leave his desk once the last UK personnel had been evacuated from Kabul on Sunday, his spokesman said, "I wouldn't go into what dictates the Prime Minister's diary." He repeated his insistence that the Prime Minister had full confidence in Raab, who faced a grilling before members of a cross-party Foreign Affairs Select Committee on Wednesday about his role in the Kabul airlift. Look, Boris Johnson doesn't work really. So what's the difference with Boris Johnson being on holiday and Boris Johnson not being on holiday? I really, really don't understand really what's the problem here, because Boris Johnson doesn't really do any work. Let me read some of your comments before we go. He is W. Anchor. It's not a holiday. He has to spend time with his family and kid. It's not fun. He preferred to spend it, with his eating mates. That's embarrassing. I can't dance, so my wife tells me that I could run rings around his dance moves. More of a masterpiece. Working holiday. That's what the locals call it, where the second home owners come down to redecorate their property. Sick of these guys trying to big up failures in office. Ian Dale blamed the civil servants over the emails. Everyone's fault but the Tories. Ian Dale is a Tory. That's the problem. Ian Dale will protect the Tories, and he's a Brexiteer as well. So he will always he'll ignore issues related to Brexit, and he'll defend the Tories whenever he can. Unfortunately, who is worse, Biden or Boris? Boris Johnson, definitely. Look, the problem with Biden is that, and I'm not defending him here, but this was a policy to leave Afghanistan that started with Donald Trump, and Biden is following through on it. Now, it is a little bit disingenuous how Biden has said that, he's supporting leaving, and it's it's been a waste of personnel and treasure in Afghanistan, while he was supportive of the war in Afghanistan, I think, when he was before he became vice president under Obama, and while he was vice president, and between being vice president and president, he was supportive of the war in Afghanistan. So it's a bit, I think, disingenuous for him to say, yes, I supported leaving all the while, and how it's been a waste of money and lives staying there, which it is. But I don't fully believe him. But he's a politician, of course, so you have to take whatever they say with a pinch of salt. Is he worse than Boris Johnson? Of course not. Boris Johnson is much worse. But Boris Johnson doesn't really care about the people in Afghanistan. He doesn't care about the British staff there either. It's just a nuisance for him, and he knows, well, I have to deal with it, because if I don't, there's a massive backlash. Boris Johnson doesn't do things because it's the right thing to do. He does it because he wants to avoid a backlash. And we've seen it with the U-turns on free school meals and things like that. He starts off being against it, or being indifferent, and then he's forced into a position where he has to do something. And we may actually see something like that with these shortages as a result of Brexit. If things start, when people start to see toilet roll not on the shelves, then perhaps the British people will rebel. Because we've seen how fruit and vegetables doesn't make, lack of fruit and vegetables doesn't make a difference. We've seen how maybe even wine doesn't make a difference, beer maybe doesn't make a difference. At what stage will people start to wake up and say, maybe we should be angry with the government, we should be angry about Brexit? We're not at that stage yet, it seems. Crap food, crap healthcare, crap schools, crap housing, crap economy. When do we call time? I don't know, Sugar Free. I don't know at what stage people will realize or decide enough is enough. But we always think this must be the straw, the final straw, but it isn't. There's lots more straw in the basket, or whatever the term is. The difference between Johnson and Trump is Boris wears nappies, Trump wears diapers. Don't need toilet paper. Got loads of election campaign material. Return to sender. No DLC. Great to see you on the stream tonight. Biden has his fair share to blame for what happened, and he cannot be fully blamed for what happened over the last 20 years. He has his fair share. He voted to go into Afghanistan. He voted to go into Iraq. He voted, as far as I know, for surges in Afghanistan. He's been supportive of it since the beginning, and pretty much right up to the end. when he took over, he decided, look, we can't continue with this. We've already started the wheels in motion and I can't really turn them back. I think he found himself in a position where he had to follow through with it, and whether it was a good thing or not. Mainstream media propaganda is too strong in the UK. When it comes to Brexit, yes, we're still hearing how, is it really Brexit that's at fault here? Is it really Brexit's fault that there are food shortages, that there is a lack of heavy goods vehicle drivers? Maybe it's the pandemic. They started off by saying it's the pingdemic. Now they've moved on to saying it's the pandemic. At what stage will people realize, will start, not realize, but come to terms with this and say, look, yes, it's Brexit? I don't know. Brexiteers prefer to have no food than getting it from Polish heavy goods vehicle drivers. Yes. Sovereignty dust. That's what we prefer to eat. The empty shells, they're not empty. If you look carefully enough, you'll find dust. You know what that dust is? It's sovereignty dust. And if you eat enough of it, you can survive. It has to be huge quantities. It's more important than foreign food, sovereignty dust. Anyways, in a part of Boris Johnson's plan to fight obesity, get people to eat sovereignty dust. Thond, great to see you on the stream again. Thanks so much for that super chat. Brexiteers prefer to have no food than getting it from heavy goods vehicle driver. You already said that. Thanks for that super chat. Yes, it's if it was British drivers, then they would be okay with it. Although, which is ironic because, when you go to the supermarket, you don't know who's delivering the goods. But but we've seen how certain non-British products had the Union Jack, Union flag stamped on them. I think there was an image I saw online of tomatoes. I think they were from Spain or maybe from Portugal. And they had the Union flag stamped on the packaging. British tomatoes, when they were not British tomatoes. Now, I don't know if that was a faked image or what, but it just reinforced the idea that we need to be quite vigilant. When it comes to these types of things. Blue passports taste great. What do they taste of? Fish? Or chicken, they say everything tastes like chicken. I blame the condemic. Yes, the conservative pandemic. When they take our chips. Well, the chips are being... There's a problem with the chips. Well, at least the fish. The fish is coming from Norwegian boats, and the fishermen aren't too happy about that. And they're planning to stop the Norwegian boats from fishing in UK waters. And the Norwegians are... saying, well, do you want your fish and chips? Because we're the ones who are actually catching the fish. Let me read some more of your chats. It's not Brexit's fault. It's Sir Ron Venti's fault. Damn you, Sir Ron Venti. Yes, of course, he's always up to his shenanigans, causing these problems. He has to take a lot of the blame here, of course. Which reminds me, on Friday night, a good friend of mine, Graham Hughes, is on. We're going to do a live stream together with Graham, so hopefully you guys can tune in then. I'll promote it on the channel before we get to Friday, so we're going to probably talk about Brexit, of course, and the Tories and private schools and things like that. So I hope you guys can make it. We're going to have a bit of a chat. I'm going to have a bit of a chat with Graham Hughes, and maybe Sir Ron Venti might be having a debate sometime soon, maybe even next week or the week after, with a Ramoner. So I hope, that's still early days, but when I have some more information, of course I will share it with you guys. So definitely try to tune in on Friday. I think most of you will. We should have a bit of a chinwag with Graham Hughes, who's always a lot of fun. Has anyone seen the 350 million for the NHS? It's behind. It's down. Dominic Cummins' sofa. That's where it is. Anyway, let's move on from that. It says here, revealed Foreign Office ignored frantic pleas to help Afghans. So this is from a few days ago, but just want to give you also an update on this, where the Foreign Secretary had something to say about it. So it says here, thousands of emails to the Foreign Office from MPs and charities detailing urgent cases of Afghans trying to escape from Kabul have not been read, including cases flagged by government ministers. The Observer has been told. The UK's Afghan evacuation concluded on Saturday night with the departure of Britain's final military and diplomatic personnel, bringing a sudden end to the 20-year deployment. More than 15,000 people have been brought out of the country in the last fortnight, and what ministers described as the UK's largest military evacuation since the Second World War. However, amid accusations of government incompetence, Tory incompetence, how is that possible? Over elements of the evacuation effort, the Observer has seen evidence of an official email address used to collate potential Afghan cases from MPs and others regularly contained 5,000 unread emails throughout the week. In many cases, emails detailing the cases of Afghans who fear for their families' lives appear to have been unopened for days. An email from the Labour leader Keir Starmer sent on Monday was still unread on Thursday. Now, you can understand, perhaps emails sent by members of the public, maybe even charities, certain organisations, but the leader of the opposition? Really? I know they have complete contempt for the Labour Party and Keir Starmer, but they don't even bother to read his email? No one? There was also appeared to be unread emails, unread messages from the office of Victoria Atkins, the newly appointed Minister for Afghan Resettlement, the Home Secretary Priti Patel, and the Tory Chair for the Defence Select Committee, Tobias Ellwood. So even members of the government, their emails were not read either. So it's not just Keir Starmer, it's even Priti Patel and Tobias Ellwood. The revelation calls into question the suggestion from ministers that the number of Afghans left behind could be up to 1,100 in total. Now, what's happened since then is the Foreign Secretary, Dominic Raab, was interviewed on LBC, I think, about this. And he sort of was very dismissive of this. Yes, there were emails not read, but we're doing a fantastic job. That was basically his response. It's complete incompetence. If you don't have the staff, then you hire the staff. You can't just leave important emails unread. Look, what is going through their heads here? What do they expect? But this comes back to the point I said before. Boris Johnson and Dominic Raab just don't care. They don't care about these people. I think they look at it as, well, these people are not voting for us and these people are not donating to the party, apart from Priti Patel and others. But Keir Starmer or charity organisations or members of the public, they're probably not donating to the Conservative Party. And maybe that's how you get your emails read. Maybe you should write in your email donation attached, and then they would actually open the email. That seems to be the only way to communicate with the Conservative Party. That's the only way to get them to communicate, to respond. Can you filter keywords out of incoming email? That should thin it out. Yes. To be fair, I wouldn't read an email from Priti Patel. No, I wouldn't read an email from Priti Patel. Can you imagine the types of things she writes? Not much goes through their heads, Max. Boris should have been sacked a year ago. He's been caught out lying so much he couldn't run a bath, never mind a country. Tried to cover up Hancock and Commons. The guy is a clown. He should have been fired, but he should never have been in this position. If you think about it, this would have been handled much differently if it was Theresa May in charge. Not that I'm a huge fan of Theresa May. This would have been handled much differently if David Cameron was in charge. You can choose pretty much any Tory in the past and they would have handled this much better. Boris Johnson dealing with COVID, Brexit and Afghanistan. Serious crises, and he's incompetent. He's just indifferent to all of this. The wrong person at the wrong time. Boris is not a clown. No, he pretends to be. Yeah, that's an important point to make, Vimster. He's not a clown. He pretends to be a clown, and I've mentioned in one of the videos how, he ruffles his hair before very serious. A very serious speech to be presented to the public. Excuse me. Meeting with foreign dignitaries, he messes up his hair. It's all part of an act. It's all part of an attempt to appear like a clown, so that he can get away with things that other people would not be able to get away with. Can you fire Boris? Is that actually possible? Well, technically, he's the Queen's advisor, chief advisor. So the Queen can actually fire him, I think. But he'd still be an MP. So he can't be fired as an MP. But technically, the Queen can fire him because she's his boss in a sense. But I don't know the ins and outs of all of it. Official Michael Gove. Thank you so much for that super chat. Yes, sir, I can boogie woogie all night long. I love it. Yes, sir, I can boogie woogie. Wonderful. Yes, sir, you can boogie. We've seen the evidence. But the Queen probably won't. No, but the Queen has to be, in a sense, apolitical, because if she gets involved in politics, it ends quite badly, or it has some pretty bad results. Block the money wagon bot that he has been. Don't ruin Bahara. Oh, yes. Can Her Majesty the Queen shoot Boris? No, we can't suggest any shooting now. She must have a mini Behringer in that purse. She could, she doesn't even need to do that. She could call, 007 to do it for her. Can we have Boris court-martialed for gross dereliction of duty or treason? See, I don't know what crime he's actually committed. Has he committed a crime? Yeah, I don't know if these are regarded as crimes. That's the problem. If the Queen can fire the Prime Minister, what was the English Civil War about? Yes. But allegedly, he is her chief advisor. So, in a sense, but of course, Parliament and the Crown are separate. So I don't know if I think it's possible. I'm not an expert on these things, of course, but I think it's possible for her to fire him, but it's complicated, and because in a sense he's not elected Prime Minister. He's elected as a member of Parliament, and then the party present him as Prime Minister. He's not. The Prime Minister is the only job you can't be fired for lying. Yes. Gove should have hired. I don't understand. Could Boris be done under the trading standards? Yeah, he sold us this Brexit, this oven-ready deal, but when we opened it, it had mold inside and it was burnt, and it was not ready. It was inedible. So perhaps he could be done under the trading standards. Oh my god, yes. Okay, let's move on. This is an interesting take. So recently, we've seen how Brexit is impacting Northern Ireland. And it says here, a majority, this is from Sunday, it says, majority of Northern Irish voters want to vote on staying in the UK. 2/3 of people say a border poll should be held at some point in the wake of Brexit. So 2/3 of voters in Northern Ireland believe there should be a vote over its place in the UK, but only 37% want it to take place within the next 5 years, according to a new poll for The Observer. Some 31% of voters said that they would vote at some point, there should be a vote at some point about Northern Ireland's place in the UK, but after 2026. The Lucid Talk poll found a further 29% said that they should never be such a vote. There is currently a 7-point lead for Northern Ireland remaining part of the UK should any vote take place. Now, how different people are reading this in different ways. So the unionists are generally looking at this and saying, look, there isn't huge support for a border poll, and if there was a border poll, a majority would vote to remain in the UK. So asked to state how they would vote, 49% said they would back remaining in the UK, while 42% backed being part of United Ireland, with 9% saying they did not know. So 49% to stay, 42% to leave the UK. So unionists are looking at this and saying, look, there's a clear majority here for remaining in the UK. This is not a huge majority. It's not a clear majority. And it's been trending downwards over the last number of years and decades. Now, I believe a United Ireland will come about. I don't see it happening anytime soon. And I think, I've said this before, I don't see a United Ireland coming about in the way that many people are imagining it. Many people saying, there's a border poll, even if a majority voted to join the rest of Ireland and form a United Ireland, and then you would have the Assembly in Belfast abolished. You would have the Euro in Northern Ireland. You would have Irish flags flying. I don't see it happening like that. I think it's going to be a very gradual process, and I think it's going to come piecemeal. I think it's going to evolve over a period of time. And I made a point that it could be possible that in order to keep, to sweeten the unionists to the idea of a United Ireland, you could have, say, for example, maintain some sort of autonomous region, maintain Northern Ireland as an autonomous region in a sense, or as a devolved power, a bit like the way it is now. Now, I'm not saying that I would support that. I'm just saying this could be something that could be used as a stepping stone to a United Ireland. But I don't know if that's feasible or if that's possible at all, or whether it would be politically supported. But a United Ireland is probably going to come about, but I'm thinking probably within the next 10 years and not within this decade. When I mean the next 10 years, I'm talking sometime in the 2030s, but not in the 2020s. I don't really see it. I don't think there is the political appetite at the moment for a United Ireland. But then, it depends on how Brexit trucks along, how much damage it does. More and more people in Northern Ireland are looking across the sea and seeing the damage Brexit has done, and they're seeing how the Northern Ireland Protocol has protected them from that. The DUP trusted Boris Johnson. That's how stupid they are. It's like they knew. I think some of them. I don't think they're all I don't think everyone in the DUP is a stupid idiot, but I think some of them realized, look, you know, how can I put it? It's like you bought a dodgy car, you know it's dodgy, but you try and convince yourself that it's not, or that you try and convince yourself that it's better than your neighbor's car, for example, even though you know that it's not as good, but you try and convince yourself of that. And I think that's what some of the people in the DUP were trying to do when it came to Boris Johnson. They know he's a liar, they know he can't be trusted, but they try to convince themselves that maybe he can, or it wasn't a complete mistake to trust him. And of course they've been proven wrong. They were living in a fantasy world. Some of them, I think, believed that he would put a border on the island of Ireland and tear up the Good Friday Agreement. But I always found it difficult to believe in such a hypothesis, because it went against everything that the Conservative Party had been pushing for. It would have turned the UK into a pariah state, and there was no real political benefit for the Conservatives in doing that. You know, the Conservatives will do things that will turn the UK into a pariah state that doesn't affect them. You know, if it's benefiting them in some way, they're happy to do it. But when it came to Northern Ireland, there was no real benefit for damaging the UK on the world stage. I know they've been, you know, taking pot shots of the Northern Ireland Protocol, not implementing it correctly, but that's not really damaging them on the world stage, the party itself. So they, you know, once again, they don't give a crap about Northern Ireland. They don't give a crap about the people of Northern Ireland. They're willing to lie to them in order to get them on board with Brexit, or to keep them quiet. Just tell them what they want to hear. And I think it was a case of telling them what they wanted to hear. The DUP in Northern Ireland wanted to hear that there was no border in the Irish Sea, so they were told there's no border in the Irish Sea. They were told that there would be no paperwork, so, you know, because they didn't want any paperwork, and just keep lying to them until reality kicks in. And then at that stage, you don't need them anymore. They're irrelevant. It goes on to say there has been persistent. Sorry, it goes on to. I missed a part. Yes, the other recent survey have put support for a United Ireland much lower. The Northern Ireland Life and Times survey, published in June, suggested that 30% backed to United Ireland. And I think this is going to change. Yes, it's low at the moment, but it is going to change because of Brexit, because of the damage Brexit is doing to Britain, to Great Britain. And people in Northern Ireland are going to look across and say, we don't want any of that. People will support a United Ireland for different reasons. Some of it will be political, some of it will maybe economic. You know, people in the border regions, they understand the value of economically of you know, being connected, deeply connected to the rest of Ireland. So they would be happy to vote for a United Ireland because their livelihoods are at stake. But I still think we're still some way away from a majority in Northern Ireland voting for it, because it's a big change. And I think in a way Brexit, while pushing, you know, a United Ireland in a sense, has really sped it up. There is still a fear over over what happened with the 2016 referendum. People were voting to leave the European Union for very different reasons in respect to what people would be voting for in a border poll, for example. You wouldn't be giving the government a bloody nose. It would be completely different. And I think the electorate in Northern Ireland would be much more concerned about the consequences of leaving the UK than many people were about leaving the European Union. It's a very, very different kettle of fish. So there have been persistent concerns within the UK government that the fallout from Brexit could lead to increased support for United Ireland, with the problems still continuing over the Northern Ireland Protocol, an element of the Brexit deal which has effectively erected barriers between Great Britain and Northern Ireland. The UK government is attempting to renegotiate the deal, which is not going to happen. But how does Brexit speed up United Ireland? By basically putting a wedge between Northern Ireland and the rest of the UK. The UK is split in a sense. Great Britain is outside the single market and the customs union. Northern Ireland is within the customs union for goods. And that's, it's creating a realignment, a recalibration when it comes to trade. Businesses in Northern Ireland are either sourcing goods from the Republic of Ireland or from the rest of the EU. They're reducing their reliance on Great Britain, and by doing so, people's attitudes will change. When you used to go and buy your food or whatever in the supermarket, and it was Tesco brand, or it was Marks and Spencer, British brands, and you start to replace those with Irish brands or European brands, your attitude to Ireland and to Europe will probably change, and we're able to, in a sense, people will say, well, it's easy for me to buy stuff from the Republic. It's the products I buy from the Republic are pretty much the same as the ones I bought from Britain. So, maybe United Ireland isn't so bad. I think there are two ways of looking at it. There's the political aspect of it, and there's maybe the cultural, economic, business aspect of it as well. But it's going to be a question that's going to be asked. We're going to have to deal with this issue for a number of years to come. But I don't see it happening really anytime soon. Okay, we're almost halfway through the stream, so I'm just going to take a little break, a little comedy moment, and then we'll get back to the serious stuff in a moment as well. So before we do that, let me read some of your comments. Can we take a vote on Gove being admitted to rehab within the next few months? 90 minutes on the dance floor. Give me a break. Fact Not Fiction, great to see you on the stream. I hope you're well. He was on some serious dust. Maybe it was sovereignty dust. That was probably what he was snorting. That kept him going for a few hours. Dog, great to see you on the stream. Wee Scott's dog. Hope you're well. Keir Starmer, great to see you on the stream. Keir, hope you're well. Boris Johnson never bathes. If you look at his clothes, he never irons his clothes either. And he even probably has someone to iron his clothes, but he looks like he's always, slept for a week in them. People will vote for the future with more access to toilet paper. Very, very good point. Did you have a big uptake on your offer for a free ride to the airport? Stuart McKay. I don't know what that's about. The British government is like a parish council, who can't accept responsibility because they're beholden to higher ups. In a sense, yes. The unionists should seriously ask themselves what they're actually angry about regarding the rest of the island. I mean, angry because you're always angry seems foolish. I think, and I don't want to tar unionists with the same brush here, but there are many unionists in Northern Ireland who have never travelled. There are many unionists who have travelled and they've opened their mind, and I know some, and like I've spoken to some of them, and they're people who have grown up, in the union's tradition, and it makes sense that they would want to remain part of the UK. It's their culture. It's in their blood, in a sense. But there are other people who have never travelled, who have no understanding of the outside world, and they have no understanding of, for example, Dublin or the Republic of Ireland, and they still see it in the way that they have been, in a sense, forced fed. Their parents or grandparents have told them this is what the Republic of Ireland is like. It's a papist state. They take their marching orders from Rome. If it was, a United Ireland was to come about, we would not be able to practice our culture anymore. We wouldn't be able to march in the street. Union flags would be torn down and burnt. There would be, in a sense, we would be treated like the way we used to treat them. And a lot of people are not too happy about that, and a lot of people are fearful of that. And I wish many of these people would actually get on a train, get on a bus, go visit Dublin for a day or a couple of days, and realize that actually it's not really like the way I imagined it. It's not this horror. It's not this wasteland. It's not this papist state. It's much more progressive. Now, unfortunately, there are many extremist Christians in Northern Ireland who are against the idea of any sort of progressive country. So they would be against a United Ireland for that reason. We don't like gay people, or we don't like abortion or anything like that. And this has been brought in the Republic, and we don't want to have any part of that. Ironically, these people still want to be part of Britain, where Britain has pretty much the same rules and laws as on the books as the Republic of Ireland in this aspect. But for them, no. The Republic is too progressive. It's too open. We don't want that. Bozo is Prime Minister in my living nightmare. And unfortunately, he will be Prime Minister for some time to come. I'm not the real Keir Starmer. No, I imagined no. But if you were, you'd be very welcome on the stream. So they'll be hateful because their parents are hateful. Why, for God's sake? Because it's easier for someone to do the thinking for you. If you don't need to think about things, it's much easier. And we've seen it with, where people read the Daily Mail or the Express. They don't question what they read. They don't say, is this information correct? Let me go somewhere else to check, to compare it. It's much easier for someone to write the article for me, someone to write the headline, and for me not to have the need to think. Nigel Farage says, people coming across the sea in little rubber boats are illegal immigrants. That's all I need to know. He said it, so I don't have to think about it. It takes time and effort to actually look into, well, is it illegal? Really? Why is Nigel Farage saying this? What is his motivation? How do people claim asylum in the country? Are there means for them? Why are they using boats and not coming by plane or by train or by bus or by ferry or whatever? Of course, bus and ferry, in the same way. Why are they using these methods? Why are they putting their lives at risk? Many people don't want to ask these questions because it's easier for just to listen to some demagogue explain it to you. You don't need to think. I'll tell you why. And unfortunately, we have too many of those people in the country, in the world, I should say. Anyway, let's move on. Let's move on to our comedy moment, for a comedy break, and then we'll get back to the serious stuff.
Choice anyway for a vaccine.
And injecting yourself with bleach, for example.
Well, show me it works. I mean, there is zero evidence that it doesn't work. There's not zero
evidence, is there? We have a report from former president of the United States who I think said it worked.
It doesn't work.
I mean, you say give me the evidence. Well, I'm willing to give you the evidence. So as a scientist, you should address the evidence. Former president of the United States is a fairly big deal. And also, maybe it doesn't need adding, but also my friend Kelly, who's very reliable, she says it works. And she went to Yale. Well, her boyfriend went to Yale, which is the same thing. So I'm saying, do you not see the evidence, Or do you not want to see the evidence?
It's not what I want to believe or what I don't want to believe, thanks. It's what I do or don't believe. And appeals to academic seniority like that are really poor science.
Interesting. Okay, well, what about ivermectin?
Ivermectin, again, even the manufacturers say it doesn't work.
But again, we've seen high cases of this working well in developing countries. I mean, primarily among horses who need deworming. I don't think we should discount the horses just because they are horses, do you? I mean, they ride around with people on top, okay? I mean, people brush their hair. That's a very intimate act. I'm very interested to hear that why every time I speak to you, you say there is no evidence of this working, and yet when I show you the evidence, you seem to not want to take it on board. I mean, do you not like horses or evidence? Or is it both?
Every time? You mean the one time? Sure.
Every time, just the one time. COVIDiots. Okay, well, staying with the pandemic, of course. But no, actually, I wanted to read this one first. It says here, the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, announced earlier on that 7 to 10, 70% of the European Union's adult population has been fully vaccinated against COVID, hitting a target that had been set at the beginning of the year. But the disparity in vaccination rates between countries, often along west-east lines, has raised concerns from the European Executive Commission in Brussels that the World and the World Health Organization. So it says here, to date, at least 845.5 million doses have been administered in Europe, an area which includes Russia and Turkey, according to the AFP tally. But Europe's figures overall hide wide disparities between richer and poorer countries. Yeah, and I've seen, data, and we're talking about Europe, not just the European Union, but Europe in general, where I think in Ukraine they have something like a 1% or 2% vaccination rate, while, for example, I think in Denmark or in Belgium, or maybe it's Portugal who's at the top, or Malta or Hungary, which are at 70 or 80%. Huge disparities, and I don't know why in Ukraine it's so low, or in Serbia it's so low, which is extremely concerning. And as I've said before, this isn't a race. We all have to be protected. We haven't won until everyone is protected. It's once again, it's not a race. According to the World Bank, 34 countries out of 51 are considered high income, including the vast majority of the EU's 27, as well as the United Kingdom, Norway and Switzerland. These countries have administered an average of 122 doses per 100 inhabitants. 2/3 of their population, 66%, have received at least one dose, and 60% are fully vaccinated. The other European countries, all considered middle income by the World Bank, have administered 2 times fewer shots, 63 per 100 inhabitants. An average of 34% of those countries' inhabitants have received at least one dose, while 27% are fully vaccinated. We're still very low here. The European Union's Health Commissioner on Tuesday spoke of a worrying gap in the rate of vaccination between member states. The bloc's only middle-income member, Bulgaria, is by far the least vaccinated, with only 17% of its population completely protected. This is extremely concerning. Max said it is a race, not between countries, but against the virus. Yes, Chatty Rat is correct. It's a race against the virus, but it's not a race against, amongst ourselves. We're not all protected until everyone's protected. We're not protected until everyone's protected. And we need to work together, and we're not working together enough. Certain countries have been fully vaccinated. They should be donating whatever extra vaccines they have to the poorer countries, sending staff there if possible. We need to work together. And, not just in Europe, but other countries around the world as well. We need to protect those in Africa. We need to protect those in Asia, in South America, where they don't have the infrastructure available in many cases to get the vaccines to the public. We need to step up here, because we have the technology, we have the equipment, we have the resources. The amount of money we're talking about is a pittance. We could easily do it, But unfortunately, there isn't a political will at the moment. Unfortunately, I think, in many cases, this vaccine rollout has been every man for himself. And this has, who has benefited from this? The virus has benefited because we haven't worked together. On the holidays, I got Brexit done. Boris, great to see you on the stream. I hope you're well. Hope you're relaxing on your non-holiday. And you're not working too hard. Great to see Boris on the stream. Taking some time off to spend with us. That's very kind of him. It is late. He needs a break from time to time. No, I meant get hurt. Boris, your wallpaper sucked. Ireland got vaccines from Hungary. God bless them. That's great. Hungary and Ireland working together. Hungary, were top of the league, top of the list with the rollout of the vaccine. And they donated some of the vaccines to Ireland. That's great. There needs to be more of that going on. He needs a break, all right. Starting with his legs now. Yes, yes, the Johnson family don't do wallpaper. Oh my god. Anyway, staying with COVID in a sense, it says here UK furlough scheme must stay for COVID hit industries, warn unions and firms. So, unfortunately, the furlough scheme is coming towards the end of its life. The furlough scheme should be extended to protect workers in industries that continue to be damaged by the pandemic. Business groups and unions have said as the job subsidy program has been supported for more than 11 million employees entering its final month. Aviation industry workers and staff at Britain's airports should be allowed to remain on furlough until next year, when travel restrictions are likely to be lifted and the airline industry returns to normal, they said. The plea comes as unions and industry lobby groups prepare for a spike in redundancies as employers, many of them struggling to cope with the impact of the Delta variant, prepare to take back staff on coronavirus job retentions coronavirus job retention scheme. Up to 1.7 million workers were on furlough at the beginning of August, and many of their jobs are expected to be in jeopardy when employers are forced to pay them all their wages. So, of course, many businesses are still struggling. They're able to get by because their staff are being paid through furlough. When these staff have to come back, many of these businesses will not be able to pay wages, it seems, and they'll have to let people go. And then people will go where? They'll go on to universal credit, which doesn't work. It's an economic outlook due to be in its economic outlook due to be published next week. The British Chamber of Commerce will forecast a rise in unemployment above 5%, which is partly as a result of higher than unusual redundancies linked to the end of the furlough scheme. Earlier this month, the Bank of England said it expected a record number of vacancies to prevent a large rise in job losses. In job losses, and the unemployment rate would remain at 4.7%. So the vacancies will. I'm not sure about that. Now there is a problem also with the number of vacancies, is that many businesses will say, look, we'll let you come back, but we're not going to pay you the full rate. Or, as we've seen in some cases, the fire and rehire, where people have been laid off and then rehired with worse conditions. Søren Teru, head of economics at the BCC, said he was concerned that many hard-hit small employers would be unable to maintain previous levels of employment. Torak Madia, thank you so much for that super chat. Would you consider going on the trigonometry channel? Yes, I definitely would. I haven't seen their material recently, but I have seen a few videos of the trigonometry. I don't know if they would have me on. That's the problem. They are, if I'm not confusing them with someone else, they are a bit like the, what do you call them, Unheard or Spiked Online. I think they're a bit like that. So yeah, I definitely consider going on, but I don't know if they'd be interested in what I have to say. Thanks for that super chat. Nico, thank you so much for that super chat. Boris Johnson donation for you so you can support him, Max. So I can support Boris Johnson. Thanks so much for that super chat, Nico. Carrie, I have to see. Sorry, is Carrie on the stream? Carrie Simmons, good to see you. Boris Johnson, get off the computer. I subscribed. It's an honor. It's an honor to have you on, Boris. I take back everything I said about you. If Boris is being stubborn and won't come home, I can come around and keep you company, Carrie. Oh, it's Princess Nuts. The good news is that the labour market is improving and unemployment is not going to be anything like we feared when we produced forecasts last year. But lots of businesses are recovering from the pandemic and don't have much cash. They are still rebuilding their finances, and so at the end of the furlough comes at the wrong time for them. With only 30 days before the furlough scheme closes, employers must notify the government if they're going to make between 20 and 99 staff redundant. Tony Wilson, the head of the Institute for Employment Studies, said that the events industry, and especially the corporate hospitality sector, were still enduring restrictions that firms supporting office workers are still suffering, given the slow return to city centre workplaces. There needs to be more protection for these industries. So yes, if there are businesses that can't return to normality, then their staff should be furloughed. The furlough scheme should be extended for those people, but I don't see that happening. It's going to be a case of people have to return. If there's nothing for them, or if it's difficult for them to work, they'll be probably laid off, unfortunately. Remember, it's the Tories. They don't care. They haven't cared. The furlough scheme was not about protecting workers. It was about protecting businesses. And it's not going to be extended. Stuart, thank you so much for that super chat. A small donation to your excellent channel. Thank you so much for that. Keep up the good work and fight for what is right. That's so kind of you. It's not a small donation. It's a wonderful donation. Thank you so much for that. Very kind of you, Stuart. And I will do that. I will keep up the good fight to the best of my ability. Very kind of you there. Thank you so much. The Bank of England is a mouthpiece for the Tory government. Clearly, you're our budget type in Mankini in the computer. And let him hear. No, not the Mankinis. Blend in with the crowd so Carrie don't see me. I love these chats. I love this, the chats on this. Okay, let's move on. Just before, I just want to read a quick note on this. Some very positive news in Scotland. Holyrood confirms Patrick Harvey and Lorna Slater as first Green ministers. So we're starting to see, maybe late, but better late than never, a rise in Green politics. In Germany, there's the rise of the Green Party there. In Scotland, the rise of the Green Party. We need parties like this who are front and center when dealing with climate change. I'm hoping that we're going to see a rise also in England, in other countries as well, of green movements. Because if we look at green technologies, they create jobs, they protect the environment, they protect communities. This is what we need to move towards. Move away from fossil fuels. There is, I remember reading a statistic that said, the solar panel industry has produced more jobs in something like in 1 year than the coal industry in the United States produced in 40 years or something like that. While people think of fossil fuels as creating jobs, the fossil fuel industry is creating jobs, it's in reality it's the renewable energy industry that is the real driver, producing high quality, high paying jobs that are good for the environment and good for all of us. Anyway, it says here the Scottish Parliament has confirmed the appointment of Patrick Harvey and Lorna Slater as junior ministers. The Scottish Greens co-leaders have been appointed following a motion lodged by the First Minister Nicola Sturgeon in Holyrood this afternoon. There were 69 votes for yes, 56 for no, and no abstentions. Therefore, the motion passed. Harvey is now Zero Carbon Buildings, Active Travel and Tenants' Rights Minister, while Slater has taken on the role of Minister for Green Skills, Circular Economy and Biodiversity. So it's good that there's, we have these new ministers that are going to hopefully push a green agenda in Scotland as part of this coalition. And another aspect of this, of course, is that the Green Party are pro-independence. So this is going to give a boost to the SNP going forward if they are going to push for Scottish independence, which many people have been, asking, remember Scottish independence. Don't forget about that. Remember, that's what we voted for. That's what we wanted you. That's why we gave you a majority. So we'll see. We'll have to keep an eye on this and see. Of course, it's still early days. A bit like United Ireland, it's probably not going to happen overnight. But Scottish independence, there's talk of a referendum maybe next year. I think there's going to be pressure put on Nicola Sturgeon to call a referendum pretty soon. And of course there are the arguments of doing it quickly or biding time, but we'll unfortunately we won't get into that tonight. Anyway, let's move on. I wanted to show you this video. Sorry, just go back here. So let's move to Afghanistan, of course. But before we get to Afghanistan, I'll just read some of your comments. My point, you're both live at the same time. They're both using the same computer. Bring on the progressive era already, yes. I've ordered new wallpaper, Boris. We'll pay this time. Great to have Carrie on the stream. I'm Sleaze. Matt Hancock, what have you been up to? Been running all the time? Have you been meeting with the ladies? What have you been up to? Nothing but pure sleaze. Greetings, Dominic. Greetings from Fermanagh. Great to have you on from the north. 72 MSPs. Now for independence, majority on the referendum is on its way in 2023. If Scotland leaves, it'll drive Northern Ireland to do the same. Yes, I think that's a very valid point. We talked about Northern Ireland before, about the possibility of United Ireland, and at the moment there isn't enough support in Northern Ireland for a United Ireland. It's still below the threshold, of course. But if Scotland became independent, that could change the game. It could be, it could really rattle the cage, and we could see a massive shift towards a United Ireland. Because if Scotland prospers outside the Union, it would put a huge amount of pressure on unionists in Northern Ireland to reconsider their position. Because their argument generally is, we need to be part of the UK for the economy. It creates jobs. There's no way the Republic of Ireland would be able to afford a United Ireland. There isn't, it would take a huge financial hit That's not going to be possible. And an independent Scotland, if it prospered, would blow that argument out of the water in a sense, because Britain would be diminished. It would be much poorer, and it would be more difficult for it to maintain Northern Ireland. Matt Hancock, my pants. I carry dresses. Sorry, my pants I wear carry dresses. Okay. Anyway, Joe Biden spoke this evening about the withdrawal from Afghanistan, and then I'm going to talk a little bit more about that.
No nation has ever done anything like it in all of history. Only the United States had the capacity and the will and ability to do it, and we did it today. The extraordinary success of this mission was due to the incredible skill, bravery, and selfless courage of the United States military and our diplomats and intelligence professionals.
I assume he's talking about the evacuation. That was a success. Because the mission of 20 years was not a success. Because what was at the beginning? What was the mission in Afghanistan? To get rid of Osama bin Laden, and it did that, and then it said, "Well, we're going to stay around and do some nation building. We're going to turn it into a democracy." That didn't work very well. And they said, "Well, we just need more time and more money and more soldiers." That didn't work either. And eventually we've seen the results of that.
For weeks, they risked their lives to get American citizens, Afghans who helped us, citizens of our allies and partners and others on board planes and out of the country. And they did it facing a crush of enormous crowds seeking to leave the country. And they did it knowing ISIS-K terrorists, sworn enemies of the Taliban, were lurking in the midst of those crowds. And still, the women and men of the United States military, our diplomatic corps, and intelligence professionals did their job and did it well, risking their lives.
See, we have the real Joe Biden on the stream. It was a success, you hear. A success.
Not for professional gains, but to serve others. Not in a mission of war, but in a mission of mercy. 20 service members were wounded in the service of this mission. 13 heroes gave their lives. I was just at Dover Air Force Base for the dignified transfer. We owe them and their families a debt of gratitude we can never repay, but we should never, ever, ever forget. In April, I made a decision to end this war. As part of that decision, we set the date of August 31st for American troops to withdraw. The assumption was that more than 300,000 Afghan national security forces that we had trained over the past 2 decades and equipped would be a strong adversary in their civil wars with the Taliban. That assumption that the Afghan government would be able to hold on for a period of time beyond military drawdown turned out not to be accurate. But I still instructed our national security team to prepare for every eventuality, even that one. And that's what we did. So we were ready when the Afghan security forces, after 2 decades of fighting for their country and losing thousands of their own, did not hold on as long as anyone expected.
They completely collapsed. Look, I know he's trying to put a positive spin on this. It's a failure. It was a failure. And I know in a sense, he doesn't want to get blamed for this. And it's right, because in a sense, he wasn't the one who started the wheels in motion to get US forces out of Afghanistan. Trump was the one responsible for that. Reagan elite, huh? You say? It's very mean in the chat. But this is Trump. Trump started the wheels in motion, and Biden followed through with it, and he couldn't really do anything else. The Taliban had been, in a sense, reinstated, it was just a matter of them eventually marching on Kabul. There was nothing really stopping them. You know, if the Americans were saying we're leaving, then all they had to do was wait. And the Afghans, you know, and I've said this before, and I'm not criticizing the Afghan soldiers, but they had no loyalty to the Afghan government, the corrupt Afghan government. They were there for the paycheck. And once there was this idea that the paycheck would no longer be around, then they threw away their uniforms. They stood aside and let the Taliban roll into town. There was no value for them in standing up to the Taliban. Why? They would see their families arrested or worse. So I feel for Joe Biden here, because he was dealt a very bad hand and he had to follow through with it. The person to blame for this is Donald Trump, but you know, that's not how things work. Joe Biden is the one who's getting the blame. This will be a huge black mark on his presidency. And can he recover? I think he can. The reason I say that is because people have very short memories. This is not like back in the 1970s with the Carter administration, where, you know, this brought down his presidency. I don't see this happening because the news cycles are different now. Well, Afghanistan will be probably forgotten about within a couple of weeks. You know, they'll still be talking about what's happened here, but as soon as the soldiers have gone, soldiers have left today. The last US soldiers left today, or last night, I think it was. The American public will move on. They will have forgotten about Afghanistan. People will, oh yeah, we were in Afghanistan. You know, kids will learn about it in school, perhaps. Yeah, from 2001 to 2021, the United States was in Afghanistan fighting terrorism. Okay, turn the page, and that's it. That'll be pretty much it. A footnote. I don't see this being a real issue over the next number of months. I could be wrong, but unless something happens in Afghanistan that threatens the United States, or, you know, comes from Afghanistan threatening the United States, I see this as becoming just another story that's run its course, and the media will move on to something else. I just want to change the... Now, of course, while for the United States it's the end, and they're going to move on, for some people it's the beginning. For example, the Taliban, it's the beginning.
You had to strain your eyes at times to see America's forever war finish. After 20 years, 4 American presidents, over 250,000 lives lost, the end was punctuated by a single image. A grainy night vision shot of Major General Chris Donoghue, according to the US, the last soldier to leave Afghanistan. Him and his colleagues barely off the runway.
Richard is correct. Does anyone remember Iraq? This all sounds familiar. Exactly. What's happening in Iraq at the moment? I don't know. What is the American interest in Iraq at the moment? Pretty much zero. You know, Iraq was in the news every day for months and years. Then it sort of disappeared. And now we're not talking about Iraq. We were talking about Iraq during the ISIS crisis. But after that, it disappeared from the newspapers, disappeared from the media. We stopped talking about it. And it's going to be the same with Afghanistan, I'm afraid. But the people in Afghanistan are going to go through hell.
When Taliban supporters started celebrating. First with fireworks, then with gunfire. Members of the Taliban then enter the airport. To the victor, in what looks like American fatigues, the spoils. The message to Afghans and a skeptical world? Then the message from US Army top brass: American military involvement in Afghanistan is at an end.
Tonight's withdrawal signifies both the end of the military component of the evacuation, but also the end of the nearly 20-year mission that began in Afghanistan shortly after September 11th, 2001.
And this assessment of the relationship between the US Army and the Taliban.
I will simply say that they wanted us out. We wanted to get out with our people and with our friends and partners. And so for that short period of time, our issues, our view of the world was congruent. It was the same. Finally, I do believe the Taliban's going to have their hands full with ISIS-K, and they let a lot of those people out of prisons, and now they're going to be able to reap what they sowed.
The Taliban's hands will be full of other things too. Although well organised, they're not a homogenous group, and building a war machine is not the same as building a functioning state and economy. Today, the Taliban spokesperson said that normal flights would shortly resume from the airport and spoke about banks reopening soon. The war may...
See, a problem for the Taliban is that they are a pariah state, and the problem with that is that, you know, if they want to function as a state, they can either open up or they can try and close the borders and close up the country like North Korea. But that won't work because there are people within the country who would like to have jobs, would like to have a living, would like to have some freedoms. And the Taliban can't maintain a war footing. They have been successful when they were fighting something. They've won the war, but now they have to win the peace, in a sense. And it's going to be very difficult for them because they'll either have to adapt, change their way of thinking, or they'll have to double down. And by doubling down, I don't think it's going to be like the way it was before 2001, where they were just able to oppress people. People have had a taste of freedom. They've had a taste of what it's like not to have the Taliban. And we've already seen protests against them. We've already seen people marching with the Afghan flag. We're probably going to see more of that if the media do actually show it to us.
Maybe over for the US. On the streets of Kabul, though, the question is it over for us?
خلق په تشویش کې دي نو کدی کوشش وکړي چې د خلکو د کار موقع مساعده کړي
با برآمدن آمریکایی‌ها ما خوش نداریم که باید کشور خارجی در وطن ما باشه. حالا خوش هستیم که امنیت هست ما نان کار داریم، هاو کار داریم، حالا در پلی امنیت ما اینجا پابند ماست بوده.
Which brings us...
We need bread and water. So, and if the Taliban don't provide bread and water, then somebody else will. And that would become a threat to the Taliban. So as I said before, the Taliban have won the war. Now they have to win the peace.
As to one of the biggest clues as to what sort of state Afghanistan will ultimately become, the extent to which the Taliban allow people to leave who are entitled to. People like Jamal Barak's family. He's in the UK now, but 2 years ago, his older brother was shot and killed by the Taliban in Afghanistan. His younger brother left disabled.
He was shot by the Taliban when he was going to school. He's been shot in this part of his body more than 10 rounds, which is disabled at the moment. He cannot walk properly as a normal person, which has been left behind.
Any claims the Taliban are making that they're a different sort of organisation ring hollow for you and your family?
The Taliban, they're the terrorists. They are ruthless people.
Jamal's family still in Kabul, looking at escaping to the border with Pakistan. Many thousands of Afghans are now on the move, the prospect of averting a Syria-style refugee crisis becoming a priority for European leaders.
And once again, you know, we have to pick up the pieces from the American adventures. No offense to American people on the stream, I'm talking about the US government. You know, the US government decided we're going to go in there guns blazing, cowboy style, do it our way or the highway, and this is the result. We've seen the same in Iraq. creating a breeding ground for extremism. And as I said in the report, now the Taliban have their hands full. Their hands full with the likes of ISIS, their hands full with economic problems. What are they going to do? What sort of state are they going to produce? Let me see. No, I wanted to just to cover just a little bit more on that, on the US withdrawal. Let me open this. So it says here, Afghanistan last man out, US completes withdrawal as final C-17 aircraft leaves Kabul airport. And we saw this image before. Went in, guns blazing, leaves with a final soldier. The US has completed withdrawal from Afghanistan after the last of its planes took off from Kabul airport. All of its service members have now departed, bringing an end to a 20-year campaign that saw more than 2,400 Americans die, as well as tens of thousands of Afghans. The photo of Major General Chris Donoghue, commander of the 82nd Airborne Division, boarding the C-17 cargo plane at Kabul, was released by the US Department of Defense, as he was the last US service member to leave the country. He said the US ambassador to Afghanistan, Ross Wilson, was also on the last flight from Kabul. The Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, said the US diplomatic mission to the country will operate from Doha, Qatar, for the time being, as America enters a new chapter of ties with Afghanistan. And we've seen the report. So what can be salvaged from this, or how is the US going to react? Now, we've already seen how the US has conducted drone strikes in Afghanistan. Is this going to continue as well? Because these drones can operate from Qatar, they can operate from Kuwait. What sort of action is going to take place? Is the US going to, for example, the CIA, are they going to operate with certain entities within Afghanistan? Is the last soldier out? Is this really the case, or is this just to convince the public that the US no longer has a foothold in Afghanistan? I tend to think that there is still perhaps something going on behind the scenes. I imagine that there are people who are in Afghanistan still with connections to the US military, and perhaps they're providing intelligence. I'd be very surprised if the CIA don't have some sort of presence on the ground in Afghanistan. I think this is going to go on for some time. Keeping an eye on the Taliban, maybe creating problems for them, but we'll see. Let me read some of your comments once again, because as I said before, you guys make the stream. This failure is not a military at fault. It was political, media, and industrial corruption. The soldiers are not to blame. No, I'm not blaming the soldiers here. The soldiers operate within they take their orders from the politicians. It's always been the case. So if the war fails, it's because of generally it's because of the politicians, not the soldiers themselves. Time for a Celtic Union. David McGuinness, great to see you on the stream. Hope you're well. I'd love to do another live stream with David, IndyCar David, who I'd love to talk to you about the heavy goods vehicle driver shortage, because I think it's a big issue, and I'd really like to have your input on that, so we can definitely have a chat if you're available. I'm Tory Plan B in the house. What's that about? The CIA will be funding more lunatics already, obviously. Create terrorism against China, blah blah. The war was also a money-making machine. Yes, huge amounts of money were spent on arms, on ordnance, on weapons of all types. Great business for people who were producing them. Same as Iraq. How many, if whoever is producing Humvees, I don't know the company who produces them, General Motors, I don't know. They've been making a lot of money over the last decade or two. Morning Consult poll in the US shows 45% of Americans are happy with the withdrawal and 64% wanted it regardless. Biden is down to 25% from 55% approval rating. He needs to change. I think this will affect him for a period of time, but then he would probably recover from this. But he needs to start talking about something else. And unfortunately, the people of Afghanistan will be forgotten. They were before, they will be again. If it is to save his career. But I don't think Biden wants to run again in 2024. I don't think it's part of his plan. Another great politician. Are you the same person acting these? Or is there a lot of politicians in the House? We have a lot of politicians in the House. We have Tony Blair as well. I'm having a laugh. I will stop now. We had Tony on. Gordon Brown now sells big issues for a living. I don't think Gordon Brown is doing too badly. Isn't he? I think Gordon Brown has his finger in many pies. Biden recover politically or physically? I mean politically. This is damaging, but he could turn around and say we're going to have universal basic income, or we're going to have Medicare for all, and I think that would boost his ratings, his support. America is greedy on cannibalistic. Americans don't like to lose. Brown the clown. What's that mean? Okay, so I wanted to talk about universal basic income. Let me see, where do I have the link? Yes, on Twitter.
This is a story about two social movements and how together they could forge a thriving future for all of us and our planet. The first movement is advocating for universal basic income. It's an idea that's been around for centuries, with versions proposed and supported by a wide range of thinkers and leaders, including Thomas Paine, Milton Friedman, Richard Nixon, Martin Luther King Jr., Hillary Clinton, and these people. Universal Basic Income, or UBI, is pretty simple. It's the distribution of a modest income to every single person without any conditions or requirements. Think of it like an economic floor that everyone can stand on.
And I love this description. An economic floor that everyone can stand on. So no one falls through it. No one falls into poverty.
No matter what life throws at you. UBI has been tested in pilot programs across the globe, and it's proven to be beneficial, with recipients of cash reporting reduction in stress and depression.
Reductions in stress and depression. We tend to look at the costs of it. We tend to look at, is it feasible? Does it really help people? Is it financially, in the sense, will people get back into work? We forget about that people are people, and we should also care about their well-being. And UBI has been proven to reduce people's levels of stress and anxiety and depression. Because if you imagine someone who is always concerned about paying the bills. Can I pay the bills this month? Do I have enough to pay the electricity? Do I have to decide whether to pay the rent or pay the electricity bill? Do I have enough money to send the kids to school, like for new school uniforms, or do I have enough money to buy bread, or should I spend it on something else? These are real concerns that people have. Traveling. Do I have enough money to put petrol in the car? Should I try and take the bus instead? these are real concerns. And if you had a universal basic income, it would eliminate these concerns overnight. You wouldn't have to worry about buying food, for example, because you would have enough money to survive on the basics. So it would help people in so many ways.
Increase in self-care and well-being, better ability to make plans, entrepreneurship, and even improved job prospects. No demographics have been shown to quit work, except for mothers with toddlers and college-age recipients who went back to school. In 2020, a large majority of U.S. citizens received stimulus checks. In July of 2021, most U.S. parents received the first monthly payment in expanded child tax credit. UBI is these payments made permanent and extended to everyone. Imagine if such an economic stabilizer was already in place when the pandemic hit. People would not have faced immediate catastrophe, and any additional aid would have been more effective. UBI is a social safety net that would soften the blows our changing world throws at us. But isn't that like a Band-Aid? Shouldn't we try to solve the problems themselves, like the climate crisis, environmental degradation, and inequality? That's where our second movement comes in.
These take time. It takes time to resolve these issues. It takes time and effort and political capital. But having a UBI in place would protect us from all of those, as they've said in the video, would soften the blow. It would not eliminate these problems. It's not a silver bullet. I've described it as a silver bullet for some issues, but it's not a silver bullet for all issues. We'll still face poverty, we'll still face homelessness, but I think a lot of these issues would be resolved pretty quickly with a UBI.
Donut economics. Pioneered by Kate Rayworth, it presents a broad framework for a thriving society that can be visualized in the shape of a donut. The donut itself represents the safe zone, where people have access to all of the essentials they need in order to thrive, without harming other species and the environment. The hole in the middle is where people fall short of these essentials. The goal is to ensure everyone has access to the sweet spot by building a strong social foundation, while also making sure the collective use of resources does not overshoot the ecological ceiling and threaten our planet with environmental disasters. The beauty of the donut is that it shows our world in a holistic way and invites us to explore the dynamic interconnections between the social and ecological dimensions: poverty, inequality, pollution, climate crisis.
Because all of these are connected. It's a Reagan Elite, a great video, yes. These are all connected. Poverty is connected to the ecological crisis we're facing at the moment. The ecological crisis is connected to capitalism. Is connected to overconsumption. Overconsumption is connected to the environment. So overconsumption is connected to poverty. All of these are interchangeable or interconnected, and we have to not just deal with one issue, like for example the economic aspect, and say, okay, that's done and dusted. We also have to look at how they interact with each other and protect. We have to protect this world while at the same time protecting the people, providing a safety net, not just for the people but also for the planet. We're almost at the end of the stream for tonight. I'll probably post this video. I think it's really good. I recommend you guys watch it. I'll post it on the channel community page. Very interesting. Big fan of UBI, of course. I try to bring it up as much as I can. So I want to say thanks to everyone who came on the stream tonight. Before we finish, I'll show you the one for the road, of course, our funny video for the end. But I want to say thanks to everyone who came on the stream tonight. Thanks for all those super chats, greatly appreciated. Thanks to the moderators for doing a wonderful job. Remember, guys, on Friday, I'm going to have a special guest, Mr. Hughes. Hughes at 10. So Graham will be on with me on Friday evening. If everything goes fine, we shouldn't have any problems, but I'll confirm it before Friday. So I do hope you can check in with that. We're going to talk about Brexit, private education, of course, and Boris Johnson. So I hope you do tune in on Friday. So let's have our one for the road before we finish for tonight. Hey.
That's the numbers going up again. You know that thing we were frightened of, that if we all go out and we all start to mix up again and we all start to meet our pals, that the numbers will rise? Well, that's happening. No had a fucking wink of sleep since last Wednesday. So I'm just going to say to everybody right now that going to get vaccinated, going to keep testing yourselves, going to keep making sure that you're wearing your mask, you're washing your hands, and see if you're all meeting indoors. Going to be careful. Hang on, just keep your windows open. Do everything you can with your own personal responsibility to no catch this fucking horrible virus that, by the way, is still out there. It's there. And we're all trying hard. I mean, I've not slept a wink since a week last Tuesday because that's the numbers going up. And do you know who's going to get the blame? Me. And that's quite fine because it's my fault. It's my fault that I can't make yous all get jagged, wear masks, keep 2 Alsatians apart. So I'm asking you the new, a wee bit of self-responsibility. Gonna just be aware that the virus numbers are gone up again. And the best we can do to stop each other from dying is to try and wash your hands, wear a mask, try and keep all those wee fucking things that we did, trying to keep apart from people, don't be shoving your face into each other. Oh, honest to God, my heart's roasted. Right, Frank, get the door. I'm out of here.
As always, wonderful, Janie. I love it. Windies and your hands. Wash your hands and open the windies. I love that. So, wow, Vicky, thank you so much for that super chat. Keep it up. I will definitely keep up the good work. Thanks so much for that. Very kind of you. Right in at the end. Have a great night, Vicky, and thanks so much for that super chat. And thanks to everyone who came on tonight. Thanks for all of your support. Remember, you can support the channel by sharing videos on social media, and you can become a Patreon. You have access to Discord, and after each stream we have a chat on Discord, and I'll see everyone who's on Discord tonight. If you want to pop in, we'll have a chat about what we talked about tonight, or whatever the hell you would like to talk about. So guys, I'll see you on Friday. Hopefully everything will be fine, and I'll see you with Graham. Have a great week, and I'll see you soon. Take care. Good night.